I'm gonna see Kimberly.
All right, I guess it's 6 o'clock. Glad everybody showed up. At least to show you some interest in the town.
See if I can figure out
What's that? This meeting's going to be about tonight is we're going to give you some information on the ordinance, which is up here. We're going to give you some tools on how to maybe do background checks or however you want to do, check your tenants. And just give you an overview of what we do and we're not going too deep into it, how we might be able to help you. We're not going to sit here tonight and get into situations, well, I did this, or I can't do this, or whatever. If you have a situation like that, you bring it to the code office and we'll address it then.
Okay.
This is just an information tool tonight. I got Pete Mackey here from North Penn Legal Services, and he was gracious enough to give us some of his time to do an overview for both landlords and tenants. So I'm going to let him do this first, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you. This was really spur of the moment that I asked Mr. Regner if I could come and do this. And my purpose is really to tell you folks, the landlords, that North Penn Legal Services, and of course we, as you know, we only represent tenants, and we probably represented many of your tenants in cases against you. But my purpose in coming here is to tell you that there is a lot of material on our website. And yes, it's written from the point of view of the tenants because that's who we represent, but everything on that website is available to the public. And I think that it is extremely important and valuable for landlords also. And the website is www.northpennlegal.org. It can't get too much simpler than that, northpennlegal.org. And if you look at our website, you'll find that there are a lot of self-help materials, including our handbook. And I did not expect this large an audience, but I brought a lot of handbooks, and I will provide more to the code office tomorrow. I mean, we have a lot of these things, and I think they're a Bible that I would think for small b Bible, for landlords and for tenants. So we offer this to you. I hope you can find that they're useful to you. In addition to the handbooks that are on our, and this is also on the website, but I think it's nice to have a hard copy. In addition to that, though, there are other self-help materials, including videos that we've done. One of them is called 10 Great Landlord Tenant Myths. And 5 of them are landlord myths and 5 of them are tenant myths. So I think it's balanced. I think it's important for tenants to know landlords' rights, and I think it's important for landlords to know tenants' rights and responsibilities. So it's rights and responsibilities going both ways. I like to say that I think the landlord-tenant relationship is maybe the second oldest one in history, because who was the first landlord and who gave the first eviction notice? Yes, Genesis. God told Adam to get out, but it was not a written notice, and now you know you have to give a written notice. The videos I think are helpful. There's a mock district justice hearing. There are do's and don'ts, including this 10 great myths. And really that's all I have to say, but I think that what the city is doing here is admirable, because I don't think there's anybody who doesn't want the tenant population to be responsible, and I don't think there's anybody that doesn't want the landlord population to be responsible and have good housing. So if the housing stock improves, I think that's a win for everybody. If the landlords get paid, then they can improve their housing stock. I know it's a chicken and egg proposition sometimes, and I commend the city for its efforts. Thanks very much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if anybody wants a handbook, you can get it online. I will give more copies to the code office, and we have them in our office too. Thanks again. Have a good meeting. Which one's the ordinance?
The one that's stapled, multiple pages.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
I've been in office a year now. This ordinance was established before I came into office, and it's been a learning process for me. So, I'm not sure if you all are aware of the ordinances, but I think we're gonna have either Mike or Joe read the ordinance, just go over it real quick. And if you have any quick questions on this, we'll try and answer them here. So whichever one of you fellows want to do it, go ahead.
This rental property designation of manager, every owner who is not a full-time resident of the city of Sunbury and/or who does not live within 25 miles of the boundaries of the city of Sunbury will designate a manager who shall reside in an area within 25 miles from the city of Sunbury. If the owner is a corporation, the manager shall be required if an officer of the corporation does not reside within the above referenced area. The officer shall perform the same function as a manager. If the owner is a partnership, the manager shall be required if a partner does not reside within the above referenced area. Said partner shall perform the same function as a manager. The manager shall be the agent of the owner for services of the process and receiving of notices and demands, as well as performing the obligations of the owner under the ordinance and under rental agreements with the occupants. I don't know how many people in here I know there's a couple of property managers in here that I know, but I don't know how many other people have managers. The identity, address, and telephone numbers of a person who is designated as a manager shall be provided by the owner or manager to the city, and such information shall be kept current and up to date as it changes. And before I read anything else, just like this morning, we had a lot of problems with heat, with this weather, pipes freezing, pipes breaking, no water, and it's really necessary for people to have managers who live. We have owners that live in Florida, and they need a good manager that's gonna, when that problem arises, that they can get a hold of a local plumber. A manager does not have to be a licensed electrician or a plumber, but he has to have the ability and the numbers and the okay from the landlord to act on emergency situations, whether it be water, fire, anything that comes in a hurry. And here it says, owner or manager shall not allow anyone not included on lease to permanently live in the rental. Yes?
Just what Joe explained, I know there's a few of you, by looking around here, that have tenants that are designated as the manager. That is acceptable, as long as they are on the paperwork as being the designated manager. So if we would have a problem at the property, we can contact them within the mileage limitations within the city. Again, as Joe had stated earlier, if you don't allow a tenant to be a manager, we do ask you to designate someone within the mileage to be a manager in case there's a situation where we would need you at night or on the weekend, be an assistant in the police department, fire department, whatever it may be, which has happened. So it's easier for someone coming 25 miles or less than coming from Harrisburg or Williamsport.
Or even out of state.
Or even out of state, yes.
We have landlords that live out of state.
Okay, information required, tenant information. Each owner or manager in the city shall submit a list on a form provided by the City of Sunbury to the Sunbury Code Enforcement Office at the time of requesting an occupancy permit, which sets forth the following information: owner name, address, telephone number, local manager name, address, telephone number, emergency contact person, property address and number of units, maximum occupancy per unit, emergency telephone number, actual number of occupants, names and addresses of current tenants, including copy of driver's license or non-driver's identification or other government-issued photo identification card if age 18 or over, or other government-issued photo identification. We have some people bring in service IDs. The owner or manager shall record the name of the tenant, the landlord's name, date of registration, the address of the leased property and the type of identifying information presented, e.g. driver's license, other government issues, passport, birth certificate, and shall have the tenant attest in writing that the information provided is true and correct, subject to the penalties provided for unsworn falsification to authorities.
There again, what Joe had just explained is very important information to our office. For example, we had a devastating fire down on Miller Street, and when the fire department first arrived, they were calling that people were still inside the structure. When the fire was that intense, there was no way that if there was anybody in there, they were going to be able to escape the building. With the landlord who had the property, having the tenant information available, I was able to make one phone call to our office and have the tenant information of every individual inside that building. I went to the fire chief and said, here are the occupants of this structure. Fortunately, nobody was home, everybody was accounted for. Again, this system worked. Plain and simple, it worked.
And it worked in that situation, but there was other situations where it wouldn't have worked. One of the first situations that arose when I took office was we had an episode, and we went through the files to get the landlord-tenant sheet out, and the people listed as residents of that property had moved twice. And there was two different sets of tenants that had moved in, and nothing was ever changed. And that's something that we are aggressively working on changing. We want to make sure that we have current IDs of the people living there in case of an emergency. We have a system coming, getting close to come, and being a reality, where the police will be able to access, they can be on site, go to their iPads that they have, bring this program up and access who should be the tenants that are living in that home with their pictures. And that's why the photo ID is necessary. We don't care if you scratch out or they black out all the other information that we get, but we need a photo and a name. So we go in there that we know that those people were there, or if there's other people there that shouldn't be there, then we need to know that too, or find out about it. But that's why the photo ID is asked for. It's not that we're trying to make it hard on anybody, but we're trying to keep the situation as safe as we possibly can for anybody that has to go on site, whether it be a fire, whether it be a shooting or anything. But we need to know. Go ahead, Joe.
Once that photo is on file, we don't need to redo that every year unless they move, is that correct?
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get, okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, each time an owner or manager and tenant enters into a new lease, the owner or manager shall register with the city of Sunbury within 10 days of entering into a landlord-tenant relationship and or occupying the premises, and provided the information referenced above. The owner or manager is required to maintain rental permit for inspection by code enforcement officer and provide upon demand the following: the current permit and current inspection report issued by the code enforcement office, the addendum to the license application required by this ordinance showing the names of the authorized occupants of the residents of the rental unit, the total number of persons who may occupy the residential rental unit or units, and any common areas located within the rental unit. In the event this information is not received by the city of Sunbury before issuance of yearly rental permits for that property, permit shall not be issued until information is submitted. It is required that all landlords incorporate this ordinance into the lease agreement. And we have dispersal of information. The Sunbury Code Enforcement Office shall share.
Now, Mrs. Campbell, in response to yours, this landlord tenant paper leaves a lot to be desired. We're trying to figure out a way we can make it easier. If you're a landlord and you have a big turnover of tenants, you're going to have to give us a new one every time you do it, because we need the identity of the people that are living here. But I know there's also people here that have tenants for maybe 15, 20 years in their properties. The only thing we want from you is a form saying that those people were still in that tenant, still in that house from 2015. And that's where we gotta do a lot of work on this form. We realize that, we don't know quite how we wanna do it, maybe we need 2 forms. We're not sure, but we're working on that at this time to try and get something set up. Okay, Joe, thanks.
And then the dispersal of information would be shared with the city treasurer, Sunbury Police Department, Sunbury Fire Department. And rather have me read everything verbatim, we could do it this way too. And so anybody that has any questions as we go down here, an occupancy permit will only be issued if the owner is in compliance with the provisions of this chapter. Maintenance of premises, the owner shall designate in their lease. Sometimes we go somewhere and they'll say, well, I don't have a written lease. And that's not good, because verbal leases, if you go to court or something, we stop and say, hey, you didn't remove the snow. Well, I'm the tenant. Who's gonna remove it? Sometimes they'll say, well, the landlord said I'm supposed to, but it's not in writing. To me, you just jam yourself up. I mean, we have a lawyer here, but verbal to me is,
I'd always recommend a written.
yeah, it's he said, she said, and it just turns into being a mess.
And that's common, that's a strong commonly found issue that we deal with, not only with snow, but
Grass,
grass, garbage,
anything.
fecal matter, whatever it may be.
Yes,
Obviously, I've tried to help people out, you know, I have the rooms for rent, and, I guess I'm gonna try to, I have people that have been with me for 7 years, my mentally handicapped fellas, and, I have like short-term leases, because some people might just need a room to stay for like a month until they get their apartment ready, and should I just try to get information to you guys right
Yeah.
away, and is that what you're saying?
I'll give
For
you a last-
emergency, because I write it on that little, you guys gave me a little thing for like emergency, and right there, and I keep that right, as soon as you walk in the door, like how many people was in there, I write the name of who is there, and I try to put a new people up there right away.
Classic example of this is the fire at the high rise. It was reported back to me that they went looking for individuals in that high rise that no longer lived there because they were on the sheet as being still living. So that's a problem right there.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
there's a
risky.
situation like that, where they're elderly, disabled, whatever, and the firemen are around, that's
Yeah,
devastating
risky.
because we're running there. And the tenants thankfully helped them out by saying, well, that person moved to Nottingham Village a year and a half ago, or that person died, or something like that. That's why it's critical. You get into an emergency, something like that, and that might be the extreme of that goes. But if there's a fire in a place or something like that, and the fire people go in looking for, or the police go in, whatever, it's critical that we know who's supposed to be there.
And then the next, I will read this. So it's, in no case shall the existence of any agreement between owner and occupant relieve an owner of any responsibility under the ordinance or other ordinances or code for maintenance of the premises.
Basically, it's your property, it's your responsibility. Will you designate someone to do that? If they decide not to complete a task, ultimately it comes down on you because you're still the owner of that property. That's why that's there. So we have a responsible party in place at all times.
Yeah, I've got a question with regards to your tenant information form that you're asking us to fill out. I might make this suggestion because truthfully, as a landlord, I don't want to get myself into a HIPAA violation of disclosing information to you publicly. So I'm gonna make this suggestion because this is how I handle it in other areas. And that would be that if this form that you want us to complete and submit to you with proper identification is a release signed on the back telling the tenant that they have a release to agree that this be done. Now, my other comment to this is that if this is on an annual basis, that my leases are gonna run different from you. I can mandate that this form be completed, and that I will instruct them after it's completed to, until they receive the key or until they receive the final lease, that they deliver it to your office directly. This relieves me of any responsibility that I have of disclosing this information, should it be or lost, can't find it, but I won't reissue it. You can verify with me at the time that lease comes up for renewal, and so be it at that point. But we've been down this road in Sealands Grove, and it is a scary road, guys, to disclose information that you're requesting.
We're not asking you to disclose anything other than the ID of the person, their name and a photo ID. That's what we're asking you to do.
I mean, let's face it, most people's photo ID is their driver's license.
Like I said, all that information can be blacked out. We know what their driver's license number, we're assuming they're living, we're with you, so we don't even need the address that's on there. We just want a photo ID and a name.
Okay, then the Sunbury Code Administration Office shall revoke any and all housing permits if they are found to be in violation of any part of 134. Property owners shall be notified and given 30 days to comply. Any property owner who violates a regulation herein shall, for each offense upon conviction, pay a fine of not less than 100 or more than 1,000, together with cost of the prosecution. A property owner may appeal to the Sunbury City Council the revocation of non-renewal of a permit within 30 days, or revocation of non-renewal of a permit. Yes, they do. No.
We will work, so that, anything dealing with revocation is a last resort. Is an absolute last resort. It's a win-win situation for everybody. If you're making money renting your properties, keeping them up, and getting a clientele in there that's going to have the same feelings about the property that you have, and it's a win-win situation for everybody. The property's going to be there, the city's going to look better, tax dollars are going to be coming into the city, and we'll be getting probably more influx into the city. And that's the only goal. We're looking to make the city more attractive for anybody that wants to come in and go through it, or wants to live there.
I have to read here this.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions about the grounds for non-renewal, suspension, or revocation of license. In general, the code office, code enforcement office may initiate disciplinary action against an owner that may result in a formal warning, non-renewal, or suspension, or revocation of the owner's license for violating any provisions of the ordinance that imposes a duty upon the owner and or for failing to regulate the breach by occupants as provided for in the end. And here's the definition of the options. A formal warning, which is most, I mean, that's, again, written notice, list of violations, upon satisfactory compliance with this ordinance, any of the conditions imposed by the code enforcement officer and or council of the city of Sunbury, the formal warning shall be removed when the owner applies for a license renewal at a time set by the code enforcement officer or by the council of the city of Sunbury. That's the formal warning. Non-renewal, the denial of privileges to apply for a license renewal after expiration of the license term. The city will permit the owner to maintain occupants in the premises until the end of the lease term, but will not accept applications for renewal of the license until a time set by code enforcement officer or by city council. Suspension, the immediate loss of privileges to rent residential units for a period of time set by the code enforcement officer or the city council. The owner, after the expiration of the suspension period, may apply for a license renewal without the need to show cause why the owner's privilege to apply for a license should be reinstated. Upon suspension, the owner shall take immediate steps to evict the occupants. And the revocation, the immediate loss of privilege to rent residential units for a period of time set forth by the code enforcement officer or city council, and the loss of the privilege to apply for the renewal of the license at the expiration of the time period. Upon the loss of the privilege to rent, the owner shall take immediate steps to evict the occupants.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you have your license suspended, revoked, whatever, If you have to have a renewal, is that going to be $1,000 then, or is it?
No.
Okay, just curious.
Also, in the papers that we had up here are two mailers that go out. I know this one's just going out, and I know we started sending this out, but last year we made up a list. We collectively got together, and Joe and Mike came up with 10 or 20 of the most normal items that go on with an inspection that's required. And most things, that we mail out, and this, we just found out that it's a law now that any rental property has to have carbon monoxide detectors into it, so that letter is going out. And hopefully, I think we did send letters out prior to this, but they'll be going out every year in the packets. That's something that we do. Getting on to now where we can maybe help you a little bit with some research and doing background checking, whatever you do. First thing we got here is it's Unified Judicial Portal of Pennsylvania. This is a website where you can go on yourself. There's no charge for it, and it's a step-by-step where you need to go through to get in. And I think all you need to do, Eric, is type the person's name in, right? You don't need any other information. Just type the person's name in.
Correct, you need their birthday,
Birthday.
also to actually associated with the proper, Joe Smith. There's 5 Joe Smiths who don't need their birthday.
Yeah, but other than that, it'll give you if there's anything in the state of Pennsylvania. Outside of the state, I think there are different portals for different states on Google. But this one here is no charge, just whatever time you take to do it. We kind of hoped he would be here tonight, but he couldn't make it. There's also a letter from DH Start Investigations, and kind of laid it out, what he does, what you do, and what he will do for, and I know there are some landlords in here tonight that do use Dave, and every one of them that I've talked to said they're very satisfied with what he does.
Do you have a list with other people, like property management firms? Do you have a list of them? Because they do the same thing that Mr. Stark does.
We have, we don't have any of this. This is just what we got. These two things, the internet is what seems would be the quickest and easiest and least expensive.
We just brought these along tonight to let people know, let the individuals here tonight
It
know
almost
that
looks
there are
like you're
services out
promoting
there.
them.
We're not promoting anybody, we're just providing information that there are sites out there, individuals out there that can assist them with background checks. We're not pointing out anybody, we are not advertising anyone. This is just some information for helpful toys.
Do you know of anybody else? You're perfectly willing to bring them
No,
here?
most companies will provide a list and tell people you have an option, and it just looked like you were saying this is the person, this is your go-to person, because
May I
that's what you're
say, you're
handing out.
totally wrong on that. Yes.
Is that Porter of the, part of the state police? Because I know
No,
that
state
state police
police-
is $25 or something.
And you need a password to get onto that. You don't need a password. This is a portal that
For just free.
only
District
Google
Justice.
gets, yeah. It's actually District Justice is what it is, yeah, District Court. Yes,
Yeah. What you get when you go through that, what you had talked about with the judicial system, you'll get a kickback. If anybody has anything, they'll tell you what they were arrested for, who they were in front of, where they have charges against them, whether it was for drugs, spousal abuse, anything. They will kick it back to you. If there is nothing on it, if you put through their birthday, it'll give you all their dates and their times of their appointments and everything at the courts. If there's nothing on that person, you will not get anything back. But if there's something on it, it will come through from the judicial system. And they'll tell you everything about it, from the judge that handled it, the case status, everything. And all you need is their name and birth date.
Is that across the United States, or is it just
No,
in the
that's
state
just
of
in
Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania here.
So
To
they
go
could
to
commit
another
a crime in
state,
another
you
state?
have to do like he said.
Google has the US portal for Pennsylvania, for New Jersey. Each individual state has their own. If you think something happened with someone in New Jersey, then you need to go to that portal at New Jersey, whatever that website is. Yes?
Are we required to check on every state or just
No,
Pennsylvania?
no, you're not even required to do anything we said here tonight, except what's in the ordinance. But I can't reinforce this enough. You as landlords are the accountable people. It falls back on you. And, you know, we've had it both ways. We've had landlords come to us and say, help us, we've got these people in, they don't pay the bill, the place is open. We have no jurisdiction on any of that. It goes the other way, where a tenant will come to us and say, hey, my landlord, not giving me heat, not doing this, not doing this, not doing this. We have to tell them, we'll tell them up front, hey, we're gonna go there, but there's a possibility they're gonna evict you. You got landlords that just don't wanna hear that stuff. So it works both ways, and I think that's what Mr. Mackey was trying to get across in here. What he was saying, he represents the tenant, but from what, and I didn't read them, but from when we talked, there's also stuff in there that the landlord has rights also. And that's why I asked him to come tonight to get that, to make that point. Anything else? Yes.
In the past, I've had tenants that have moved out, took stoves, refrigerator, appliances like that. What is my right? How do I go about getting that?
You have to legally pursue the tenant. We're here to enforce the property maintenance code of the city of Sunbury. We don't have any legal authority other than anything that deals with that property maintenance code. Yes?
Yeah, but the city police, you call the.
No, we're not,
They don't
we're
come
not,
either.
I told you we're not gonna get into this, right? Okay, this is a session on what we're trying to do to help the landlords better deal with what we're asking them for. Yes, in the back. McAllister, did you want to say something? I'm sorry. I thought you were getting to say something.
No, I'm sorry.
Anything else?
Yes, so now where the tenants have rights, and the landlord denies them, at being able to move into your unit, what happens? Is that tenant now able to go and sue the landlord because they didn't allow them to move into their property because they had a criminal record?
I don't know. You should have asked that question to Mr. Mackey. I don't know of anybody in this room that is forced by law to rent to somebody they don't want to rent to. That's my opinion.
That'd be the privilege of the homeowner.
But there are laws. I mean, it's just like if a landlord says, no, I don't want you to move into my unit because you have 9 children. If they say that, that person can have a lawsuit against the landlord for saying that. So I'm just asking the same question.
She won't you for saying that.
You don't tell them that,
That's
Lance.
ignorant.
Yeah, she won't you for saying
And
that.
if you have a rental that's enough to enable you to support a family of 9 children, then I would imagine I would want to rent it.
I was gonna say, Regina, too, that's outside of